Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the PhinManiacs.com podcast, and Happy New Year to everybody. So this is kind of a new year, new show, new everything, and we're going to start things off real big here. I'm here today not with my co-host, Chad Ronnebaum. He's taking the day off. Instead, I have three other guests with me from various podcasts and websites who I have high respect for. First, we have Lisa from, I keep defaulting to NFL Female. That's not it anymore. It's Our Turf Football, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
okay.
Sir. Glad to be here with you guys.
All right. And I've got Mike from Dolphins Talk, who I was recently on his show a little while ago, and it was an awesome time. I'm glad to have him on mine now.
Happy to be here, guys. What's up?
And I've got Simon Myers from Dolphin UK. And yes, it is very late where he is, so we're going to try and be expedient about this.
Happy New Year to you guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. Like, I wanted to do this right after the game on Sunday, but Lisa was actually the one who responded, you know what, we should probably wait until they see what they do. And oh my God, was she right to do that? Because suddenly everything seems to have happened all at once. We just lost Adam Gase. Tannenbaum has been, quote unquote, reassigned, and Chris Greer is now in charge of everything. So those are some pretty big changes from the last game of the season. So I'm very happy to say that all that stuff happened, because it's going to hopefully set the tone for a whole new thing. Stephen Ross had lots of stuff to say. But the first thing that we're going to talk about, first and foremost, is we're going to talk about what exactly went wrong this season, because I'm sure that everybody has their own theory or multiple theories as to what went wrong this season. But we're going to go ahead and go through the line here, and we're going to start with you, Simon. What exactly went wrong with this Miami Dolphins 2018 season, in your humble opinion?
Yeah, thanks for that. Throw me in at the deep end. I think we can all probably come up with a list, as long as your arm, as to what went wrong. But I've actually got three main points that I've jotted down that were significant enough for me. So I just thought I'd go through those in turn. I think the first one that stands out for me is not using Kenyon Drake enough. The dude was balling at the end of the 2017 season, and we all thought he was going to break out. He was going to be an elite running back. But to me, I don't think he's just been used enough. Appreciate the fact we brought Frank Gore onto the team, but he wasn't getting near enough carries as far as I was concerned. They didn't build on what happened at the end of the 2017 season. Yeah, he scored the most touchdowns on the team, but in terms of carries and yardage, I think he could have had significantly more. So that was the first point that I was going to talk about. The second one is an obvious one, the quarterback situation. I know everyone was pinning their hopes that Tannehill was going to come back after his injury and have a great season.
Well, I was. I don't think Mike was so much.
But we really didn't know how he was going to respond to his injury, whether he was going to recapture some of that form that he'd shown previously. And you know what? It simply backfired. They didn't come in with a significant enough backup plan, to be honest with you. He proved that he was fragile. He obviously missed multiple games. Osweiler and Fales simply aren't good enough. They're not starting caliber quarterbacks, to be honest. They should have drafted a young up-and-coming quarterback to get some reps when Tannehill went out, or they should have at least explored free agency a little bit more than they did. So failure to have a plan B at quarterback, again, was significant enough for me. And the third one I'd got on my list was we could see it, the fans could see it. Why couldn't the Gase or Tannenbaum or Greer see it, that Matt Burke is simply not a defensive coach? He should have been fired well before the end of the season, to be honest with you. And had that been done, I think the season could have possibly have been salvaged. But of course, they didn't sack him, and the defense just got worse and worse and worse. And as you know, by the end, statistically, it was just the worst season in Dolphins history. So again, that for me was another significant thing that they should have done. They should have fired Matt Burke. So those three things to me stand out. And of course, you guys, you're going to have many more, I would imagine, as well. But for me, those three things are what I've got.
All right, Lisa, you go next. And if you want to chime in on what Simon said, then feel free to do so.
Yeah, I definitely will.
It's dialogues, too.
No, I certainly can appreciate that. There's just some very great points. I mean, and I think every point we're going to make is in turn of what happened with the team and not getting the talent out of every single player and putting them in positions is what I think was the biggest thing. Adam Gase always tended to overthink himself a lot of times, with Balaj coming in the last couple games and the presser after that saying, well, we knew this guy had this in him every game, but yet he was inactive for 7 or 8 games. It's kind of a mix because you're like, okay, we know we have talent on this team. Certainly injuries, I know it's always the next man up mentality. And we certainly had that this year. We all know that. I mean, we lost, 8 starters. I mean, it was kind of, unprecedented, but all teams go through this. Making the adjustments. My biggest thing was the adjustments. We made no adjustments in the second half of games, even though we knew what needed to be adjusted. And it always drove me crazy with him sitting on the bench. It always drove me crazy with him sitting on the bench. I just think a head coach needs to know what's going on with the team as a whole. I know that was his style. He didn't care what anybody thought about him sitting on the bench. He was trying to help Ryan Tannehill with blocking schemes and picking up blockers and trying to help the team offensively of what was going on, which I understand that. But Tannehill's been in the league a long time. He should know where the blitz is coming from. He should know how to adjust. He should know the reads. There's no reason for you to sit on the bench and have to point out to these all-pro guys where the blocks are coming from. So that always drove me crazy. So, and then Simon's point of Drake. We would see Drake have a great game that all of a sudden in the second half, where'd Drake go? Where'd Kenny Stills go? So I'm going play calling and just not being able to adjust. And the defense, I'm 100% with Simon. I don't know what we were doing half the time in the defense. That whole thing with Rashad Jones, and then once again,
that
Gase,
was a big one, yeah.
It was a big one. So there was obviously some turmoil there going defensively, but I thought the last couple games, Burke kind of got them together a little bit, but I certainly want to see Matt Burke move on. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think a whole coaching change, except for Darren Rizzi, he'd be the only one I would keep.
Darren Rizzi, I wanted to become the freaking head coach. Are you kidding me? But that's something we'll get into a little bit later. But I want everybody to realize that if you want to interject at any moment, please feel free to do so. It's like a tongue twister.
I just want to touch on something Lisa said, actually. And we talked about Gase sat on the bench helping Ryan with his blocking schemes, or allegedly. But did anyone see that clip on Twitter of somebody clipped him on the bench at one of the recent games where he was supposed to be writing something on his sheets, but wasn't actually writing anything at all, was just seemed to be moving his pen? Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I did see that.
Real?
I saw it. Yes, it is real. Yeah. I did see that.
That's actually something he did. Oh my!
It is something he did. And there is also a quote, and one of the times he met with the press in the past week and a half or two, I think he said, Sean McVay, he does this as well. So I don't know why everyone's talking about me doing it. It's like, yeah, but
because you have Wade Phillips.
Because Sean McVay's going to win the NFC West, and you're in like no man's land. That's why.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So nobody cares what Sean McVay does because he's got results. You don't. Period.
But Sean does. But he does it for like 5 seconds.
Exactly.
And then he comes back. And then he watches.
It's a TV timeout. He's sitting down. He's boom.
Exactly.
Back up. Yeah, I know. You're preaching to the choir, Lisa. I know.
It drove me crazy. And another thing is when one of the players would get hurt, he would still sit on the bench and even said to us in a presser, "I know that seems cold, but there's nothing I'm going to be able to do at that moment." I mean, come on. Even Bill Belichick goes out,
stand over the guy and just say, "Hey, man,"
checks on his players.
Exactly.
These are your guys. But like I said, I understood that, and I had great debates with people on Twitter. They're like, I don't really care. That doesn't bother me. It bothered me.
It bothered me as well about that clip that I mentioned. Didn't that happen to coincide with a big penalty or a turnover or something? I can vaguely recall something happening where it had gone against the team, and Gase just didn't seem interested at all. I can't remember. Was it a penalty or was it a turnover? One of you guys probably could remember.
I remember there was one play going on. It was during a game, and Lisa was watching. I think we were in the press box for this game. Mm-hmm. Lisa was watching to see if Gase was paying attention, and it's like, nope, there he is again. He's sitting on the bench while the defense is playing. And I don't know who made the interception. I think it might have been Minka. Like Minka, I think it was him. intercepted the ball and ran in for the touchdown. Did he get in pick six this year? I'm not sure. I don't remember.
That was against Minnesota. Yes,
somebody
he did against Minnesota. He did.
Yes.
That was his first one. Yeah.
No, then that wasn't the game that we're thinking of then, because we were saying that we were saying then that I wonder if he looked up from his clipboard to see that there was an interception for a touchdown. Like, did he look up then? It's like, oh, I don't know. But no, that's terrible, man. That's terrible. Okay, Mike, you go.
Yeah, to me, in the NFL, the two most important spots on any team is head coach and quarterback. Mm-hmm. And that is where Miami is clearly lacking the worst. You can, if you have an offensive line that's not so great, there's things you can do to sort of hide it, mask it. If you have linebackers that are slow, there's things you can do to hide it, mask it. If your head coach is not up to par, and if your quarterback is lacking, that's where you can't do anything to mask it. And with the head coach, it seems like from all the reports that are out, and I've read so many articles from all the newspapers down there, that, like, I don't know what the percentage is, or if it's half the roster or a third of the roster, a large chunk of the roster didn't like the guy, period. They didn't like the guy. They didn't get along with him. He couldn't connect with the team.
You're referring to Gase, not Tannehill.
Gase, yes, Gase. Gase couldn't connect with this roster, the entire team, and that's a problem. That's a big problem. That's something he's going to have to resolve when he gets his next job, wherever that is. And when it comes to the quarterback, what we saw from him in 2016 before the injury, we never saw that guy again. The guy who played this year was okay at times, but just okay, and he regressed. The guy we saw in 2016, we never saw this year for the Miami Dolphins. Right. He never got back to being that guy. The year and a half or so, however long he was off, however many months, that really did hamper him. It really did. And moving forward for him, wherever he ends up next year, it's going to be tough. I mean, there might be a team that will roll the dice on him and let him start, but I hate to say it for him because he's a great guy, hard worker. Really, you really can't see nothing bad about him as a person, but when it comes down to field play, he regressed so much. Moving forward with whoever he's with, he's probably just a career backup at this point, who's a spot who will start if somebody goes down. I don't know if any team will want him to be their number one guy. I'm sure there might be one or two, but I don't see it with him. But that's where this whole year went away, because every team has injuries, and there's things you can do, like I said, to hide certain injuries. But if your head coach doesn't have the roster, and he sort of lost some of those guys, like it sounds like he lost Wake, sounds like he lost Drake, sounds like he lost Rashad Jones, and I'm sure there's many more. I mean, I don't know how you can manage a team when a large chunk of the team just flat out is not on the same page as you and has no respect for you. And
but Mike, one thing, don't you think though, for these teams next year, I mean, certainly if you look at this quarterback draft coming into 2019, it's not spectacular. The 2020 draft looks pretty good.
Loaded.
Don't you think Tannehill would make like a good gap quarterback for, say, somebody like Jacksonville?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
If he ended up in Washington or Jacksonville, I mean, compared to what they have now, which each one of those teams is pretty much nothing, because Jacksonville, they have a guy who just can't play. Washington, they lost their guy to a horrible injury, obviously. Right. So for a one-year stopgap, but I wouldn't just hand him the job. He would have to fight to win that job. I'm
all for that. Believe me.
I don't know, but I mean, I don't know how you can just sort of sign him and think we sort of hope he wins the job, because I don't see it. I just don't see it with him. He regressed so much, and the mental mistakes is what's really scary. Not so much the physical stuff. Like in the Cincinnati game at the end, where he's throwing that lob pass, like a hook pass, like just eat the sack. You have a lead on the road late in the game. You want to keep the clock moving. Eat the sack. Why are you trying to avoid a sack? I mean, some of the mistakes he made were rookie mistakes that he should not be making 7 years in the league.
I can just see it now. Actually, he's gonna sign to the Patriots, replace Tom Brady, and he's gonna win a Super Bowl with Belichick.
Well, as long as Dante Scarnecchia is the offensive line coach, he will be just fine.
Yeah, he won't get touched.
Because that's how it is with Ryan Tannehill. That's how it's always been with Ryan Tannehill. You keep him healthy. Right. You keep him healthy. You keep him protected. He's gonna do amazing stuff for you. If you're blitzing him and you don't give him any way to get out, that's another. Yeah, that's the other thing. You don't give him a way out. It took the last 2 weeks of the season for us to see Kenyon Drake start getting used on out routes just to like, oh, here comes the blitz. Let me toss it over here where all the defenders have already gone past him. Like, why did it take so long to do that?
Your head
Well,
coach.
would a new coach do that though? Would you guys be opposed to him being our gap quarterback for this year?
Yeah,
looking
that's
to go
cheaper.
2020?
He's got to go. He's got to go.
Okay.
He's got to go. He's got to go because, one, if he's on the field next year, they're going to sell no tickets. I'm telling you right now.
Well, they're not going to sell
I
tickets
agree.
anyway. They already, Ross already said it's a rebuild. Don't even bother
True.
coming.
But if he's out there, it's just going to make it worse, number one. Number two, I don't know. I mean, I think for his sake and for the sake of the team, it's just best to part company.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Change
For
the
him,
sake of
for his
change
sake,
for
yeah,
all
he's
parties. For change, they just have to each split this because it's not working. And to throw him out there for year 8, it just is not going to be a healthy environment for him or the team.
You're right. A couple of things I was going to add to there. Actually, we mentioned about the Raiders and the Jags. The Redskins and the Jags. But what about? We're all talking about him being released, but what about something I was going to bring up later on? What about trading him? See if we can get a training partner for him.
If
Get
there's a
something.
Quarterbacks always get something.
Exactly.
I think we could get at least a middle rounder for him.
If there's a team who would offer something, just say yes and do it. No, what do you
exactly.
Just say yes and do it.
Yes, do it.
And the other thing I was going to make a suggestion about, I think we're all agreed that his days as the number one are gone. There's no doubt about that. But what about keeping him as a backup?
Not in Miami.
Look, not in Miami, no, but I still believe that with protection, he could still be a starter somewhere just because we've seen what he can do when he's protected, and that's the one thing he has never been his entire career.
And it might take him another, 6 or 8 months to get back to the guy he was in 2016. And if that's the case, great for him. But for the Miami Dolphins, they just can't keep waiting around for him. It's just time to pull the plug. He's been here long enough. And it's just time for a fresh start for everybody.
All right, fair enough. So, all right, let's go into the next part on the docket. What should the team have done? I'm going to go ahead and start with you this time, Lisa.
Well, I think, first of all, Matt Burke should have been fired. I think that should have been one of the things. I think that would have, at least shined some light of that Gase knew exactly what was going on with the team. I think that would have been helpful. Quarterback situation, I still think Tannehill was the best we had on the roster. I probably would have liked to seen Fales a little bit during the end instead of Osweiler.
That's something I would have liked to see, yes.
I would, because regardless at that point, we were losing anyway. So at least, give Fales a shot. Let's see what you have, stuff like that. I think, like you said, just utilizing the players. I would have loved to seen, Drake finish the season. I would have, Gore got hurt, which was a shame because I think, he was a monster. He definitely wanted to be with the team and showed it every single time he carried the ball. Devontae Parker, Joe Rose had a great thing the other day. He lost his confidence, and I agree with Joe there. The kid needs a fresh start. He needs to get out of Miami, go somewhere where he can, be a productive wide receiver. I don't think he'll ever be that true number one.
Where is there a team where there's enough nothing to keep him focused on football?
I'm trying to think.
Is there anything in Minnesota?
Cleveland. Everybody wants to go to Cleveland now.
Send him to Buffalo.
What about San Francisco?
San Francisco. That's like beach. Isn't that like that's California? That's like fun times. No. It has to be somewhere boring.
Somewhere boring.
What about the London Raiders?
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah. Eventually, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Cardinals, Arizona.
Yeah, the desert. That'll work.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever Adam Gase goes, he can just follow him.
Oh my God, yeah, that'll work.
Oh
my God, I just remember. Oh yeah, Arizona.
Send him to Cleveland with Landry. You can have Landry, Parker, and Gase all reunited. That'd be great.
Oh, that would be
You've got to get them on Hard Knocks again.
I think Landry went up to the owner's box and said, "You better not bring in Gase, or I swear."
Wait, because now all of a sudden he's not even a consideration.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I think it was just everything. So, I mean, I would have just utilized the players talent-wise. I mean, getting Stills involved. I mean, you know how I felt about the tight end position. And like I said, we debated that a lot. It does take a little bit to develop the guys. I was just expecting a little bit more out of Gesicki. I guess it was just me hopeful that you'd see big-time potential from him. And I just didn't. I still don't have a wow factor with him at all.
You know why, Lisa? And this is the thing, because when I briefly did a film review on him, and yes, I actually can do some film when I actually know what I'm looking at. I needed some help, but I got it done. But anyway, the thing with Gesicki is that most of his plays were contested catches. Like, he had to go up and be taller than somebody and make a tough catch. That's not something that the Dolphins ever did. They kept using him. This is the Michael Agnew story all over again. We're trying to make him an inline blocker when he never was one. He's never been good at it. He doesn't like to do it, and yet here we are again. We're going to break another tight end just like we broke Agnew.
You're 100% right, and I think it was Omar Kelly. I spoke to him at the game I was at, which was the Bears game or something, and he was like, I think he said what he saw from him in training camp and stuff is he couldn't get off the line of scrimmage and get separation in the passing game, which I understand. He's young. He's a rookie. That might take time. But if you're the head coach of the Dolphins and you're sitting there calling the plays, put him in motion. Get him moving around. Put him in the slot. Line him up so, it's a little bit of a mismatch in our favor. And don't just put him down there with his hand in the ground, tell him to pop up and run a route that clearly he is struggling. So that, to me, would fall back on our head coach and the staff. It's like, use him in the right way.
All right,
Doogie
so
Howser coach.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Simon, you're up.
Thanks for that. So I've taken the question in terms of what the team should have done. I've gone a step back and thought about, well, what should the team have done in the off season, as much as anything else. And a couple of the points I'd thought of was the first one that hit me was they got rid of Mike Pouncey to the Chargers, and he's made the Pro Bowl. And it's like, well, I know Gase was all for changing the culture in the team, but clearly that decision has backfired. And had he kept him on the offensive line, then that may have helped with obviously the QB protection. So that for me was a big. I know hindsight's a wonderful thing, and you don't know how things are going to pan out, and especially with the state of his hips. But he's lasted the season and he's made the Pro Bowl, so that for me was a big error in terms of letting him go. The other thing I mentioned earlier was around the lack of competition at quarterback. They've always seemed to have expressed an interest in Teddy Bridgewater, but they've never pursued it. And they're even talking that there's obviously stories on Twitter about how they're going to pursue him again, and they should have done that in the last off season. I mean, even if he didn't beat out Tannehill for the starting job, at least give him some competition, and he would have been there as a backup when he got injured, of course. So that's something they should have done a year ago, to be honest. And again, the third thing, in terms of what the team should have done, I've already mentioned it before about utilising Drake more in the running game. Simply just not enough for me. I mean, you could clearly see he's a playmaker. Obviously, we've got the miracle. We've got numerous other touchdowns that he scored throughout the season. I think, is he the team lead in terms of touchdowns? I think he probably is, isn't he, this season?
So.
Yeah, he led the team in touchdowns.
Yeah,
and there you go. Perfect example. At least leads the team in touchdowns, but they clearly didn't use him enough.
No. The thing on Mike Pouncey, though, you guys, was I think he was ready for a change, too. Mike clearly was not the same down here.
He was heartbroken though when they said he was leaving. It was like a betrayal. He said.
Oh well, once that gets out that you're looking to move on, then it's time for him to move on. Because like I said, I don't think he would have been able to play under knowing those circumstances. That we wanted to get rid of you, but
I don't know. If we're gonna go off of Simon's points, then I think again the biggest thing was just Kenyon Drake. Like, I've had some people tell me that you need a bruiser back to be the guy who can like wear down the defense, and I do agree with that. I'm not saying that Drake needs to get 20 carries a game and then he needs to catch 10 more passes. That's a little overkill. But the thing is that Drake very rarely got the ball at all, and that's what bothers me. What little times he did get it, he got touchdowns out of it. But this is the thing. Like, people tell me that Drake, as soon as they key in on him, he's not going to be effective. But that's just the entire point. If they're worried about Drake, and that means somebody else is open, doesn't that open up something else? And then you have to worry about that guy, and then you have to worry about this other guy. And it's all a process. You have to get the ball in the hands of your playmaker so that other guys will have an opportunity to make those plays that Drake is currently being stopped from making, So I don't see why the logic was such a problem for the coaching staff. It really does feel like we were discussing it at the last game that we were covering, the Jacksonville game, you and me, Lisa, and Kevin too.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like there had to be something else going on there. And considering that it seems that Drake was not all that upset, at least on the surface, that Gase was gone. No. We have a report that basically says no, that's not true. But I don't know. But like supposedly there was something going on there with Kenyon Drake beyond the shoulder injury, because Frank Gore's been banged up all season long too. It's not like he was getting stopped from carrying the rock.
Yeah,
I've got some stats actually in front of me now. If I'm reading these correctly, they're mind-boggling. So in 2017, when Drake took over from Jay Ajayi, or I should say London-born Jay Ajayi, he had 133 carries for 644 yards. This is according to NFL.com. So that's 133 carries over, half a dozen games?
Roughly,
something like that.
2018 stats, total 16 games, 120 carries.
So what happened?
Well, there were some games where he only had like 3 carries or so. And I know there was a game at the end of the year. I forget exactly which one. It might have been the game against the Bills. I'm not positive, though, if it was that game, where in the first half he missed a blitz and Tannehill got sacked, which it happens. It's not the end of the world. And it's like he never saw the field again the rest of the game. It's like if a guy makes punishment. Exactly. You can punish him for a series or maybe even 2 series, maybe even a quarter, not for the entire game. It's like we need him. We already lost Wilson. We already lost Grant. Some of the other wide receivers are less than 100%. Now you're going to weaken that spot too. It's just mind-boggling, which all leads back to that coach. He was in over his head, clearly, or he just, I don't know what he was thinking half the time. I really don't.
Ego.
And he never made sense. He never made sense.
Oh, my God.
Because he would always say, we got to get the ball in, the miracle play.
Yeah, we got to get the ball in Drake's hands.
We got to get the ball in Drake's hands. We got to get it to Drake's hands.
Give it to him, throw it to him, pitch it to him, let him throw it. I don't know. Figure it out. I don't know. But it's like none of it made sense. And when it goes back to the running game, which just sort of is my point on this one topic, what should the team have done? Run the ball more. There were games, and the 2 games that come to mind, Cincinnati and Indianapolis, where Frank Gore is running the ball 6-7 yards a carry. We get to 3rd and 1. What do? We throw a bomb, and then we punt, and then here come the Colts. They score. Next thing you know, we're in a dogfight when we shouldn't be in one. We just
That's when he runs the ball.
Yes, and that's when he runs the ball when now we're behind. No, you run the ball when you got the lead. And it made no sense at all, and it happened all year. But those are the 2 games where it really came back to hurt us. It's stick with the run. It's working. Why would you get away from it? We're getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry. Frank Gore's in a groove. He's just moving the chains, moving the pile. And no, we stopped doing it. It's like, why do we stop running the ball? It works. And
because they expected it. That's what
because they expected it. Yes, expected
it. That's what he tells you.
That's what it is, and it's like he outsmarted himself. Like
exactly.
You said, and it's just, it's just so frustrating to watch. It's like, look, I was ready for this split. I'm so happy he's gone. You guys have no idea. If I had to sit through another year of him, calm plays, and with that little pouty face on the sideline when things didn't go as well, I might have just threw a remote right through the TV. I couldn't take it no more. I listen to the press conferences every day at work. I say, oh, he's talking to the press. I go online. I find it. I listen on my little computer as I'm working at work. I'm like, what the hell is this guy saying? It doesn't make any sense.
It never made sense. He never made sense at his pressers.
Armando Salguero, what was it? I think early November, said the one thing. He's like, Ryan Tannehill's clearly not the same guy he was in 2016. And he's yelling at Armando, oh, this with you is results. You don't know what you're talking. Well, yeah, it's about results. You're in the NFL. You either win or you lose. You play good or you don't. And if you think Tannehill in 2018 was superior to the one we saw in 2016, either A, you're lying to us, or B, you're just dumb or delusional. So either way, you look like a fool. It's like, what are you doing? You're not helping your case any.
No, not at all.
It was just so frustrating, and I'm just so happy he's gone. Oh.
The other thing that wound me up about Gase was that he simply needs to shave more.
Well, see, I don't take that away from him because you know what? I have no doubt the guy worked his butt off.
I'm sure
I don't. You
know
these
works,
coaches.
He just didn't work at the right thing.
Exactly. They aged 10 years, I swear, from the day they're hired to the day they're either fired or resigned. These coaches look like they're 20 years older. And I respect that. You know it takes a lot to win in this league. I understand that. But, like Michael said, the things he would say were mind-boggling. Just like in the presser, we just caught teams at the bad time. Okay, well, when are right times?
Yep.
Right.
Isn't that why he wore his cap all the time? Because he was losing his hair and didn't want anyone to see.
I'm sure.
But, there's a whole thing about being smart and being a leader and smartly dressed and smartly presented, and that should filter then through down to the team. And that's why I know it was a cheeky little comment about him shaving. But, you set an example to your team. You dress smart, you act smart, and your team will follow. So that's the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, I understand that.
Gase was a nightmare at the tail end of all this, like the Rashad Jones not knowing why he was out of the game. Then he, instead of saying like we're handling it in house, he's like I don't know. It's like you never should say that. You never say I don't know why.
Exactly, lie.
Top. Why you're
lie? Right?
What does Belichick do?
To lie, just lie.
What does Belichick do? We're on to Cincinnati. Don't even answer the question.
Yep.
That's true. Just like the Rashad Jones thing, and we, was there, and I was watching him, and they asked him about it, and there were so many answers that he could have given that the media would have been fine with. Like, you know what? I'm aware of the situation. I need to talk to Matt about it, and see what exactly happened. No, he was totally like he was clueless that the guy took himself out of the game. Come on, guys. You know dang well if you're the head coach of the football team and your star safety takes himself out of the game, somebody's going to come tell the head coach, right?
Especially at halftime even. I mean, Christ, talk at halftime. Hey, what the hell's going on? How come we're not out there? And if it were me, if I was a head coach in this world, I'd be like, play the second half. We'll talk about it after the game. I don't know. I mean, figure it out type of deal.
I don't know. All right. So I imagine that this is going to be a short topic, but the third one that we had was, are there any positives? And I'm going to start with you, Mike, first.
Yeah, I actually think there's more than a few. I think some of the younger players we have really, at times, really played well this year. I think, in my opinion, the three most important spots on any team, position-wise, is quarterback.
Besides QB. Okay,
yes, well, that is left tackle and cornerback. And I think Miami, with Xavier Howard at corner and Laramie Tunsil at left tackle, have those spots pretty much locked down for the next, many years, as they have two elite, and they are truly elite guys at those spots. So
Can I interject for just a moment?
Sure.
I do not endorse trading Xavier Howard. I'm saying all I said was that you have to think about what would you get in return if you're doing a rebuild. If they're going to offer you 2 first-round picks, wouldn't you still at least think about it?
I would do it, yes. But if there's a team who offered us 2 first-round picks, knowing in the 2020 draft it's a big draft for the quarterbacks, I would absolutely do it. But yes, obviously.
Okay.
But,
it's like, that's all I wanted to say. Just saying, because you're ripping me apart.
That's dumb. But yes, those 2 spots and having them locked up for the next however many years, I think is a big positive because those are 2 important spots on any team. I also think some of the other younger guys, Mika Fitzpatrick is worth his weight in gold. I mean, you can play him anywhere. He's got the right attitude, the right character. Loving everything I saw from him. I think even with the linebackers, they had their ups and downs this year, but with Raekwon and Jerome Baker, I think there's something there. I don't know what their ceiling is, but I think they're at least quality NFL starters. I don't know how good they'll be, but I think there's some growth there that we could see that would really be good over time.
Raekwon kind of came into his own a little bit near the tail end.
He really did. And also Vincent Taylor, right before he got hurt, was playing fantastic. So the young guys, I think we got some young guys here to sort of build upon. I think we really do have to flush out some of the older guys, but that's something else. But for positive, some of the younger talent, I think is really there and is going to start to blossom over the next year or two and be even better than what we saw this year. It's sort of a jumping off point, at least, I think, for at least a few spots on this roster.
I absolutely agree 100% with everything you just said there, Mike. I've got exactly the same point down myself and with exactly the same names that you mentioned. So agree absolutely 100% there.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah,
I guess that's it.
Definitely
Go ahead,
talent.
Lisa.
I do. Like I said, I'm on board with all of it. The one positive for me was honestly, I think I have to take away from Ross's presser. I think he's starting to get it.
I love him. Absolutely.
And I kind of was really happy with his presser. He kind of seemed like he took a little bit more. I mean, the poor guy looked dejected after
pissed
that.
Off too. Yeah.
Oh, he did. And I liked that. I liked that they showed him on TV with his hand on his head, with Tannenbaum, with this look on his face. I loved that because at that moment, I kind of was like, oh, this guy is not happy. He wants to win. And I think that presser tells us that. And with him coming out and squarely saying, next year is going to be a wash because we need to rebuild this thing.
Well, he never technically said it, but
no. But another thing he said too is about signing these damn aging veterans, thinking that we're going to the Super Bowl.
Ouch. I mean, did he say it like that? I didn't watch the whole presser.
He said it. Did. He kind of did. Not so many words. I don't have the exact quote.
Okay, yeah, I was to say it's like we have to stop this damn aging veterans. Like, Danny Amendola must feel wonderful right now.
He did say we have to stop signing these older free agents and
high price
guys because that's just going to get us between 6 and 10 and 10 and 6, and we have to get
unacceptable.
Beyond. He says something like that. So he goes, we have to get beyond that. So we have to change the way we do things, and signing older guys should not be something we do. Which makes me think Wake is gone, out with Frank Gore, out with Amendola, out with Andre Branch, Quinn, and Alonzo. I think those guys they're all gone pretty much with that quote. But yeah, I mean, he looked pissed off, and I loved every minute of it.
I did too, because he looks like he's getting it figured out and understanding that, though, we love the players and stuff like that, but it's just, it's time.
It's not working. We got to try something different.
And I'm glad that mediocrity is not good for him. Yeah. I like that point. I don't want to be 8-8 every single season and say, oh, that's a successful season. No, he said that was unacceptable, and that, to me, was the first positive I saw.
I go back to the beginning of the season again where we signed Sitton and Kilgore and everybody was saying how our offensive line was now fixed. It was great.
Well, it was. On paper it was. In the first game, it looked terrific.
But they're two aging veterans, aren't they? So, again, I've mentioned it earlier, hindsight is a wonderful thing. So you think you've signed great players and they've now kind of realised, well, actually, maybe that's not the ideal scenario that we should have put ourselves in. So you're right, he does seem to be learning.
I don't know. I'll say this. I understand his point, but I think, can we all agree that at the beginning of the season, we thought, okay, we have something going here?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. I loved our line. Yeah. I thought for once we finally had a line. We were finally going to get to see Ryan Tannehill at his full potential with no more of this, we can't really grade him. We can't really tell. I really thought, we were going to get to see what this team was about.
The thing is with him, I think, in part, that's correct. We're never going to be able to grade him properly because he'll never reach that full potential. I think he had more potential than we ever got to see, and we're never going to see it because he's just been banged up too much. He has like the David Carr disease now.
David Carr syndrome, yeah.
Well, the one thing that really, really upset me was the end of the game against the Colts. Because, for years we've been saying we want to see if he's the guy. We want to know if he's the guy. And I know the situation is not perfect. There's a lot of guys hurt. No Albert Wilson, no Grant. The offensive line's banged up. It's late in the fourth quarter, tie game. We're on the road, big game late in the year. We got the ball at the, 8-yard line, 10-yard line, whatever. This is your chance to say, Ryan, win the game. And we turn around and hand off, and we turn around and hand off, and we turn around and hand off. It's like...
No, it was a bubble screen, right?
Yeah,
it was a screen.
Something like that, whatever. But it was like, this was your chance to see if he's the guy. You had the opportunity fall in your lap, and you didn't even take advantage of the opportunity, which makes me think he ain't the guy, because if you don't have faith in him to even try to see if he's the guy, then there's nothing there at that point, because that was the chance. Big game on the road, late in the year, against a good team. This was your chance to lead your team down the field, win the game, be like, that's my guy. He did it. And we didn't even try. We turned and handed off to Frank Gore and punted.
It's sad, really. I've always been a defender of Tannehill, and I will root for him till the day he dies. But it's like he has been he has given his heart and soul to this franchise, and he needs to go somewhere else. He really does.
Yep.
Yeah, and like I said, I was the same way. I wasn't a hater. I support anything this team does. I really do. And I cleared the debates of the Tannehill people on Twitter because I never really kind of engaged in a lot of it. I maintained what I always thought he was average with a good line. He's a manageable quarterback. He's an Alex Smith to me. He's a good game manager, and with good time. I mean, we saw him drop balls on dimes. I mean, he had some good games with us.
I remember the 2016 game in Foxborough where he was one Devontae Parker drop away from leading the team back in the fourth quarter to take the lead, and I was just like, oh my God, that would have cemented his career at least.
Yeah, I remember
that one pass to Parker in the end zone, that would have been it, and he couldn't reel it in because that's what he was supposed to do, catch those contested balls. He didn't.
That's why you're a first round pick, to make those catches.
So, and that was my moment that I felt was taken away from him. But okay, we're not going to turn this into a Tannehill show. I do that too much as it is. Let's see, moves that the team made postseason. Okay, we already talked about the fact that Gase is fired. We are on consensus. We are so happy that he's gone. Yeah. But let's go ahead and talk about how on. I know you guys said you're on board with Ross's comments, but how long do you think a rebuild should take?
I would say 2 drafts, max. No more than 2 drafts. I think because you have this offseason and a draft, then one more offseason and a draft. And by offseason, I mean free agency signings, obviously. No more than 2. I think next year, look, if they go 4-12, 5-11, I get it. It. The year after that, they better be close to 8-8 or more, and making their move type of deal, making that leap. In this league, teams go from last to first overnight. We saw it ourselves in 2007, 1-15, win the AFC East. It doesn't take that long, but
wasn't that the year they switched to Chad Pennington?
Yes, well, that's the thing. That's the thing. But I think this team has enough money underneath the cap. Right now, it's not much, but they're going to get rid of a lot of these guys, and they're going to have around $60 million or more to spend in free agency. They're picking 13th, which isn't it's not awful.
If we had gotten a little help, we would have been 11th, but that's okay, whatever.
I know. And it did look that way. And if not for the Miami Miracle as well, that sort of fluky play, which I know everyone loves to play.
Was it worth it? Was it worth it, though?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it was. It was.
It always will be. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
Anybody else but the Patriots, no. Patriots,
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So, I mean, they can make some moves here. Like I said, gut some of these older guys. I don't want to see Andre Branch. I don't want to see Robert Quinn. I don't want to see Wake. Everyone loves Wake, and I love Wake as well. If he wants to return making $5 or $6 million, great. $9 million, $8 million, no friggin' way. He ain't worth that anymore. Those guys have to go. Alonzo, I mean, nice guy, but he makes some dumb penalties.
Okay, look. No. I'm going to defend him this last game. He hit the guy with his butt, okay? He was not going for a hard hit.
I know, but still. He's either way with him, he's okay. If he stays, I'm sort of okay with that. But there are some guys here out with Parker. That's going to save $9 million right there, right. So roughly. There's a lot of guys that I have no problem going because they contribute next to nothing. If you don't contribute anything, you're not going to be missed. And I have no problem if we play guys like Cameron Melville next year at end because they're better than Andre Branch.
He's in Arizona.
Oh, he is? He
got released from the practice squad, and since then, I think he's blocked 2 kicks.
Oh my God!
He did this weekend. Okay. I think he blocked a kick. I'm sure I saw that.
So he screwed that up. That's nice.
I knew from the start this guy had something there.
He was a player. He had something there. I mean, look, he's not a superstar, but he makes like an eighth of what someone like Andre freaking Branch makes, and he puts out the same production. So you might as well play Melville.
It's true. It's true.
So, but those types of moves we can live with. And if next year's a rough year, I'm fine with that because this year we won 7 games and we're still miserable and complaining because it doesn't feel like we won 7 games because it was just such a frustrating year. The head coach hire is obviously going to be big, and I'm sure we'll talk about that here. But
in just a minute, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be a big thing that we do. But I have no problem if we have to take one step back before we take that leap. I'm fine with that, and I'm okay with that. Get rid of the guys who don't belong here, who make too much money and give you nothing. Boom. Start there.
And actually, I think now would be a good time to go ahead and play that audio that Simon Myers actually got a chance to interview Joe Rose at the alumni party a while back, and he had Joe Rose actually said pretty much the same things that we were saying just now. Okay, roll the tape.
It's gotten really frustrating. Something has to change. We got to get some things figured out at the top down, and we got to come up with a new game plan because this one's not working. I think we got to go back and reevaluate the quarterback situation. We got to reevaluate free agency. I think it's got to go through the whole thing. We got a handful of great players and guys, Kenyon Drake, Xavier Howard, Laramie Tunsil, and these guys. But we got to go back and really look at a lot of things if we're ever going to jump up. And we're going to talk about us with Kansas City and L.A. and Pittsburgh and New Orleans. We got to change a lot of things.
I mean, it can be done because you look at the Rams where they were a couple of years ago with Goff and his rookie year. They weren't brilliant, and look where they are now.
Right. They had a lot of great players in a bad system. Now they got great coaching. Those guys have all come into their own, and they got a system, sticking with it. But I'll tell you what, this owner and his staff, whoever's going to be with them, going to be a bigger evaluation to be done on a lot of different parts of this team after the year.
Can you imagine? This is like the fourth time I've listened to that clip, and it just now clicked. Joe Rose predicted Gase getting fired before he was fired.
Yeah.
I mean, he spoke a lot of sense, didn't he? I mean, I was really grateful for him to spend a couple of minutes having a conversation, actually. And he was really open about what he thought. And you're right, he was spot on. He even picked out the players that we've got a good nucleus for as well. So he knows it. He knows, doesn't he?
And let me tell you something. I had talked to Troy Drayton at that same party, and let me tell you, he was sick to death of those bubble screens and stuff. He hated them. He despised them. He didn't want to see one ever again. And I just found it so amusing that it seems like everybody can see what's wrong here except the head coach. It's like, isn't that kind of a problem?
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's see. The last thing on the docket before we just kind of start rambling and stuff, because I know that Simon's probably got to go soon. So what should the team do now? Like, we've already fired Gase. We have put Greer. Well, actually, no, I take it back. We didn't actually talk about Greer being in charge. That's something they already did. Real quick, what do you guys think about that?
I think Mike's already mentioned potentially next season being a washed season, and I'm okay with that as well. And I look down we've got to get a quarterback from somewhere, preferably a draft. Doesn't have to be the next draft, but there are two in a couple of years who are going to graduate who you think are going to be special. You've got Tua from Alabama, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce his surname because I can't, and I don't mind admitting I can't. And you've got Trevor Lawrence as well, who's coming out the year after. And I think, from what I know, they're going to be two pretty special quarterbacks. And if you've got any ambition, you've got to look further down the line and think about they're the guys I want to target.
So you're okay with Greer specifically? You wouldn't have wanted someone else instead?
No, Greer's fine, absolutely fine. I don't know too much about the guy, but from what I've read, he seems pretty intelligent, knows his way around the league, he's well respected around the league, so absolutely on board with Greer, and you've got to give him a chance.
Yeah, I have no problem with him either because he's a football guy. He came up, he's a scout, and that's how he came up. He came up as a football guy. Has he been perfect the past however many years he's been here? No, he hasn't been perfect.
14 years with the team, and his father has a pedigree with the Patriots, I think.
Exactly. So he's been around the sport his entire life. He's a football guy, and that I like. He's younger. I have no problem with him having all this power because it's all on him. So it's not like, well, Tannenbaum's not the GM, but he's making these picks and trades. So is that on him or is it on Greer? There's no confusion now. It's all Chris Greer. He runs the show. He's going to hire the head coach. The buck stops with him. We know who to blame if something goes wrong. We know who to heap praise on if stuff goes right. So I have no problem with him having all this power at all because we need a football guy to have this built right. And, he's the guy who found us Xavier Howard, Laramie Tunsil, Mika Fitzpatrick, and all these other guys.
Charles Harris?
Yeah, yes. Look, nobody's perfect. And I think with Harris, I will say this with Harris. Yes, he's been awful so far. I also think he's being grossly misused.
There you go.
I pray this offseason we switch to a 3-4, and he's an outside linebacker in a 3-4. If then he still stinks and he's just not any good. But I want to see him in a 3-4 because as a rookie, we moved him inside on passing downs to a defensive tackle where he's clearly undersized and got pushed around and did nothing. Why we would take someone like that and move him inside on passing downs never made any sense. And
because William Hayes was supposed to do that, probably.
Well, yes, but he also did it too in training camp, which never made any sense at all. But still, and he never really played a 4-3 end when he was at Missouri. We tried to make him that, and it's just not working. Let's at least see if we go to a 3-4, which all depending on who we hire, we may or may not. Who knows? I think I'm not saying he'll be a star, but we might just get something out of him at least.
What I like about him, if we go with Bears defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, we're going to run a 4-3 because that's what he runs with the Bears.
Fangio runs 3-4.
He runs 3-4.
But then he'll run a 4-3.
He runs both.
He'll run both, but he'll run. But like you said, I think he'll utilize Charles where he was. And once again, if he doesn't pan out, okay, but at least the guy was used correctly, and now we know.
Yep, let's see.
Yep. So what I like about Chris Grier is kind of like what Mike said. He is a scout guy. He likes to look at players. We'll draft a quarterback every single draft with him running the show.
Are you going to put money on that?
I guarantee you we draft a quarterback. We're not going to draft. We probably won't draft a Haskins or a Locke because they're going to jump all over those quarterbacks those first couple teams. They're going to throw their hat on the ring on those guys. There's a couple, but you'll go a later round with a Clayton Thornton quarterback out of Northwestern. You got a couple guys you can go third or fourth. Ryan Finley, quarterback NC State. I
saw him live. I saw him live from NC State. He was great. I saw him play up here at the Dome against Syracuse. They lost the game, NC State, but he had a heck of a game, and he has pinpoint accuracy. His arm's not the strongest. He can't really move too well, but you know what? For a third, fourth, I would take him in a heartbeat, and let's see what happens.
And what are we talking about, Mike? Competition. Quarterback competition. Yep. That's what we need.
Well, who's the competition then, though?
Well,
it depends on who we're going to bring in as that gap quarterback. You're going to look at Flacco's going to be a name you're going to hear.
No.
I know, but you're going to hear them.
Flacco,
hey, listen.
Foles, Bridgewater, Eli Manning. Those are going to be the names you're going to be talking about. Those are the names.
Fitzpatrick. He's an ultimate one and done.
Yeah. So, those are the names.
Those are the names. But I do think that during the draft, and a lot of these guys will tell you, it doesn't matter if you've got your set quarterback. You still need to have a quarterback on this roster that can compete, that will compete. And every year you should draft a quarterback, especially these aging teams like the Saints, the Patriots. Every year they're going to draft.
Yeah, that's something to think about. Do you think Bridgewater's really going to be available if they're afraid that Drew Brees is going to crash and burn soon?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I do as well.
Did you see how Bridgewater played?
Okay, then why do we want him?
I don't know.
I think he wants us. I think he's from Miami. He grew up, not far from Hard Rock Stadium. He's from Miami. Miami born, Miami bred.
Okay, you know what then? If you want a Miami quarterback who really does well in Miami, then go freaking get Geno Smith for pennies.
I'm not saying that's why I want him. I'm saying if he's on the market and if it's between us and someone else, he'll probably lean towards us. I'm not saying I want him number one. I'm just saying if it's between us and someone else, he'll probably lean towards us because he wants to be home, and that's his home. He wanted to come here this offseason per all the reports, but Tannenbaum and head coach Adam Gase weren't on the same page, so couldn't make it work.
I heard that it was because he wanted too much money, and that's why they didn't get him.
Okay, either way, but he wanted to be here, and that's the point. I'm not saying he's the answer, not by a long shot. If they sign him, Flacco, whoever, to me, they're all about the same. It's just like picking a name out of a hat. But I think the reason he won't sign with the Saints is he knows there's going to be teams like Washington, Jacksonville, us, who need a quarterback. And we would probably pay him more to potentially start than to sit on the bench behind Breeze. And for him, if he's got a chance to go home to Miami to potentially start and make more money, even if it's a little bit more money, I think for him, that's something he'll do. Now, we might not even want him. I don't know how this is going to shake out. But I think him, if it's close, he'll come to Miami because this is where he's from. And that's where he wanted to be. That's where he wanted to be this year. We're just a bunch of morons who couldn't find out a way to make it work.
And people will come and see him. Fans will pay tickets to come see him.
And we would have known.
Well, fans will come and pay tickets to see anybody.
But we would have known this year, too, if he could play, because he would have had 5 games all to himself to start, and maybe he would have showed us something to be like, hey, you know what? He's someone we need to hold on to. Or, hey, you know what?
Right.
He's not the guy anymore. He's just as bad as somebody else. But we would have known at least. We would have known.
Exactly. And he'll still get a chance to compete. That's what we're talking about, competing.
Yeah, the competition. It's all about the competition, isn't it?
Yep.
Another name that intrigues me, actually, you mentioned it, Mike, is Nick Foles. I mean, he's done great with the Eagles, obviously won a Super Bowl, but is he a system quarterback? Is he a fit for Miami?
That's the problem I have. It's like the only time Nick Foles has ever been good, regardless of who was the coach, the only time he's ever been good is in Philadelphia. And that's a little weird to me. It's like he was good under Chip Kelly. He's been good under Doug Peterson. As soon as he got a starting job elsewhere, he flopped hard.
Yeah. I mean, we're
just talking about a gap, guys. We're just talking about a plugger because we already know that,
front load the contract. Front load the contract. So after year 1 or the second year, it's just an easy out. That's what they got to do with one of these guys. Front load the deal so there's no money come year 3, so you can be out of him and just not even have to worry about it.
Yeah, be out from under him. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah, that's how they got to do it. Roll the dice. It's the ultimate roll the dice.
I think we're all agreed that we're gonna need probably 3, maybe even 4 new signings, aren't we, at that position? Because none of the active players on the current roster are going to.
No, they're all gone. They're going to be all gone.
Yeah,
I don't know about Falk either. I mean, people keep talking about him. Falk. Tennessee had 4 picks last year in the draft. 4. He was one of them, and he was cut in September. So I don't know what that says. I don't know what that says.
He was a Gase pick, though, wasn't he? Gase wanted
Yes, he was.
Gase, because Falk supposedly had accuracy, but it was Armando that actually pointed out to me during the draft process. It's like, if Falk was so special, why did he get benched twice?
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess that's something to think about. All right, so we're coming to the tail end here, and now we're just going to talk about what should the team do now. So I guess really what I'm asking is, who should they sign as their head coach? Because we've already got a bunch of names out there, and what should they do once he's signed? Like, who's your choice for like coordinators and whatnot? Like, give us the off-season plan.
I haven't thought about coordinators and stuff yet, but I'll give you my top 3. And it's sort of one of those things where we went with the younger coach, the offensive guy, late 30s, and it didn't work. It sort of blew up in our face in grand type of fashion. And now you got to go in a whole other direction, I think. You got to go with someone who's at least been around the block a bit. And the 3 names are, in any order, would be Vic Fangio, who's just a football life. He looks like a football coach. You look at him, and that's a football coach. I mean, he's a football coach. And he's a guy who, he's just been around the league, and he's someone I like. And either one of the Harbaugh brothers I'm fine with, John or Jim, because these guys are men. They're leaders of men. They're football.
Neither of them are coming.
I know. Hey, I know. But I'm saying that's the top 3 on my wish list. What I think will realistically happen, because our job is not really that attractive compared to the Jets and the Browns and some other jobs, we're probably going to end up with a Chris Richard or a Eric Bieniemy type, which is okay. We're going to have to take a flyer on a younger guy. I just hope we don't hire Adam Gase 2.0. We get someone who's a little bit more grounded.
You mean Joe Philbin 3.0?
No, well, Philbin was older, though. I'm talking about one of these guys, a little bit younger, although Eric Bieniemy, I think, is like 50, but still. But somebody like that, a first-time head coach who's just, maybe more humble than Gase, a little bit more grounded personality-wise, and somebody like that who I think will probably happen. But if I had my wish, I'd want either Vic Fangio or one of the Harbaughs, but I don't know if that's going to happen. But that would be the top of my list. What I really think is going to happen, it's going to be one of these younger guys who are unknown. We're going to have to roll the dice on. And yes, whoever if it is someone like a Chris Richard, who he gets as his offensive coordinator is going to be the most important move he makes, just the most important move he makes.
What about Lincoln Riley, one of the college coaches?
He just signed
an extension with Oklahoma.
Oh, is he? Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, he gone.
Unlike
Nick Saban, he said that he was going to stay, and he meant it.
Yeah.
One interesting name to throw out there, and he's been fired during our recording. Actually, is Jim Bob Cooter of the Lions. He's out.
Oh, he just
No.
got
Really?
fired. Well,
Yeah,
I
he
think
got
I think
fired,
everybody
but,
was waiting for it though. So
Yeah.
I mean, is that really that I don't know.
Mm-mm.
Like he had like one really good year where everybody was like praising him and having fun with his name because he's Jim Bob Cooter.
I know,
It's
really.
like and then it's like no, he wasn't that special.
It's like hiring the guy for the Ravens, Wink Martindale. Great name. I don't know if I want him as my head coach, although he does seem like he's a very good coach. I don't know if he's head coach material yet, but Wink Martindale as your head coach would just sort of be fun to say. Yeah, Wink Martindale is my head coach.
Do you think he'd sign off his press conferences with a wink?
That would be awesome.
That would be great. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of names out there. You got Pete Carmichael from the Saints, Vic Fangio, obviously, George Edwards for the Vikings, who I heard he's going to meet with Tampa Bay. They seem to be high on him. Mike McCarthy, I don't think he's on Miami's radar.
No, please.
I don't want him either.
Why no? The guy's
God.
125 to 77 losses and 2 Super Bowls. How can you not give that guy a look?
He might be worth a look, but I think a lot of that is Rodgers. He sort of masked a lot there with him. He's worth a look, but I don't think he wants us. I think he wants a job.
He wants a quarterback because he knows that's
exactly
what is going to take him to the next level is a franchise quarterback.
And that's why I think he'll end up with the Jets or the Browns, honestly. And I know he already told Arizona, who offered him pretty much control of everything. He told them no. So it tells you
he's not interested in Rosen at all.
Exactly. He's telling you he wants a Mayfield or a Sam Darnold.
Sam Darnold could be interested with him. We might we might be in trouble for a lot of years if they take him up there.
Oh, I think we're already in trouble. I think we're in trouble with the AFC East because every team, even the Patriots have a quarterback in place, and we're like behind the 8 ball big time there.
Okay, I know we keep saying this, but eventually Brady's got to go. Like, there's no way he's actually going to make it. He's not going to make it to 50. That pipe dream is just not going to happen. There's no way.
We probably have to put up with him for at least the next 24 months, at least, I would think.
I would think so, too. I'd say 2 years, too.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, he's going to be a pain in our neck for that long. And on top of the young guys with the Jets and the Bills, that's just going to be painful. There's Chuck Pagano out there. I don't know if I want Chuck.
I like Chuck.
I like Chuck too.
He
reminds me a lot of Philbin. I don't want to go through that. He does remind me of Philbin. Jim Caldwell. I think he's a sleeper candidate. I think he's a sleeper. They played hard for him when he was with the Lions. They played hard for him when he was with the Saints. I mean, not the Saints. The Indianapolis Colts. Sleeper candidate. I'm not in love with him, obviously. Josh McDaniels, I want no part of him. He reminds me so much of him. He reminds me so much of Gase, it's not even funny.
Darren Rizzi?
Rizzi, yep.
We get the same thing, though.
No,
no, it's not. Rizzi's not the same at all.
Not the same. It's just.
But honestly, he's been our head coach every single game.
Well, when they're on defense, yes. But let me tell you something. I don't know how much stock you guys take in like the Twitter source people, but if I would believe this much at least that the players that are there would want Rizzi as their head coach. And this is something I made a point of earlier. It's like, again, and there was actually an article. Somebody tweeted an article to me that was written back in 2015. It's like the one thing that nobody ever looks at for head coaching material is the special teams coordinators, because they don't have like this offensive or defensive reputation that they can say, we'll bring in this guy and he'll fix this. John Harbaugh for years was a special teams coordinator before he became the head coach of the Ravens. And look where he is now. Everybody wants John Harbaugh. Everybody wants to trade for John Harbaugh. And Rizzi, we've known for the longest time, he's got one of the top special teams units in football. That means he has to work, by the way, with both offensive and defensive players at all times. So it's not like he's unfamiliar with any side of the ball. He knows both sides. And by all means, he is somebody that the players like, and he's definitely a leader. He'll yell at you if he has to. He's not shy about.
I got a combo for you.
What?
I got a combo for you. How about Rizzi as head coach and his offensive coordinator Dan Campbell?
Campbell is an offensive coordinator?
Well, I mean,
I don't think he would. I think Campbell would. I think Campbell he's looking for a head coaching job. I don't think he'd take it. I think he wants to be an
it's a step up for him.
This is something that I said to you when we saw each other last, Lisa. when it comes to Rizzy, I think he might get some old coaches that worked with him in the past. Because remember, Rizzy was around when Bowles was here as a coach. He was here when Campbell was a coach. So I would if Rizzy called up and said, "Hey guys, guess who's in charge now? You want to come and be my team?" I don't see why Bowles wouldn't come and say, "Okay, let me be your D. I'll be your D coordinator," and Campbell can come and said, "Okay, why not? I'll come be your offensive coordinator, Darren. Let's make this work."
And we're just looking at a head coach. We're not looking at a guy that's going to call offensive plays. We're not looking for a guy that's going to call defensive plays. We're looking for a guy that's going to manage the whole team.
Right.
And to me, Darren Rizzy does that anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and isn't that going to be a problem though? Would they not think that they would need a complete break, completely do something completely new? If he's managing the team anyway and they're still at 7-9, would they think, okay, there's too much?
It just depends on what kind of decisions, Simon, that they gave him. I mean, what different decisions would he have made? Because Gase was still his boss. What would he have done different? I guess would be my thing. What would
be the first question? Yeah, and that's gonna be the first question he's asked when he sits down with these guys in whenever he sits down with them. The first question: what would you have done different?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. As long as he doesn't sit down on the bench.
But what's going to happen if
Rizzy's going to be too excited and yelling and hollering, and he's not going to be sitting down ever.
He might like Matt. He might be like, "No, I'm keeping him."
Oh no! Oh well, no. If he does that, then I'm firing him on the spot. Like, nope, you're fired. Out.
Short interview. Real short interview.
Thank you for your time.
Time for lunch. Let's go.
I understand why they haven't fired Burke yet. Everybody's like, "Why is Burke still here?" Because the new coach is the new. He's not going to be here. No, but it's the new head coach's decision of whether who needs to stay and who needs to go. Darren Rizzy's gone through how many head coaching changes now? Sperano. He was here with Sperano. He was here with Philbin. He was here with Gase. And if he really wants to stick around, I imagine he'll still be here as a special teams coordinator. So unless he gets a head coaching job somewhere, which I doubt he will, because as a special that's what the article said, was that special teams coordinators get absolutely no love. So anything else other than a head coaching job is a lateral move, because he's not going to go and be someone else's defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator. He is what he is, unless you let him try to lead the whole team.
But that's another great question. Do we want somebody that's never been a head coach before, or do you see? I prefer
the only guy who's on the short list that right now who's ever been a head coach before is Mike Munchak, and I'm not impressed by that name.
Oh, I don't
even Fangio, for how old he is and how long he's been in the league. He's been a defensive coordinator his whole career. He has not been a head coach ever. So even as old as he is and as gristled as he is, he's never been a head coach either. So
I know. I'd want someone with some experience. The problem is those guys just really aren't out there, or the ones that are like John Harbaugh, Jim, are probably just unrealistic, honestly. So, but yeah,
Chad. You sound like my boy Chad. I love Chad, but it's like every time he says something about coaches, it's like Jim or John Harbaugh. The Harbaughs don't like Miami, okay? Even if they were begging on the streets for food, they still would not take the Miami job.
I think they might.
I think Jim would. I think Jim would be interested.
Jim snubbed Ross 3 times.
Yeah, but not for Michigan, he didn't.
I don't know. We'll see.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I think either one. I think now, John, I don't know what's going on with John Harbaugh. That seems like it's really complicated up there with the Ravens. And
it really is.
And you also got John Elway in the mix, so I don't like that because people love John Elway, and he's John Elway, so I can go work for John Elway. And
John Elway's not good either. That's why I don't.
I know he's not good, but people respect him. But people just fawn over him. So,
yeah, and we talked about that, Mike, actually on our show today, because it's like all the outside GMs and stuff and owners are like, "Wow, John's really not doing a good job." But the Denver fans are like us with Marino. If they put Marino in charge, you're not going to say anything bad about him. You're going to have 20% say something, but 80% will be like, "Oh no, we stand with Danny."
Yeah, and it's just weird what's going on with the Ravens. So I don't know what's going on with John Harbaugh, honestly. But if he is available, if they had to part with a second,
I'd take John.
I would just
I would take him in a heartbeat because he wanted to come, which I don't believe he would.
Well, I don't think he's on the market, but if he was on the market, I think we'd be in the conversation at least. I don't know. Obviously, if he had a chance to go to the Browns or if he had a chance to go to the Jets, he would run there just because they have a better situation than us.
Right.
But if he's on the market and if he had some interest in Miami, I think Ross would make the money more than available. That wouldn't be an issue. It would just be if he wanted to be here. But, those types of guys obviously are at the top of the list. I just don't know if they're realistic. We probably are going to have to take a flyer on someone like Chris Richard, Brian Flores, Eric Bieniemy. That's probably who we're going to end up getting. And, hopefully we hit it this time. Because obviously last time with Gase we really missed. But hopefully this time with whoever we pick out of that grouping or some other younger guy, we hit it. Because I think that's who we're probably going to end up with, unfortunately. I just don't know. Because they're all unknowns.
What I don't want to happen myself is if we go for the Harbaugh from the Ravens, if he's available, is give up, get fleeced and give up a ton of picks.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to take a ton of picks, Simon. I think it would.
Well, I think maybe like a second and a fourth, and not even in the same year, maybe. Like maybe a second this year and like a third or fourth next year. I think.
Do you want to give up picks if your 2020 is what we're aiming for?
I don't want to.
No, I don't think we will.
I don't want to, but I also want a good head coach who I can trust. So once again, if we can just sort of lock that spot down, then it might be worth it in some ways. But again, I don't even know if that's even possible. But if it would be, if the compensation's right, yeah, I would roll the dice on that.
All right. So given the short list we have now, including Rizzi, because he's on it now.
Yep.
You said Fangio is your preferred, but you think that's a pipe dream too. So
I don't think it's a pipe dream. I don't think it's a pipe dream.
You think Fangio's realistic?
I think it's realistic because it sounds like he's only meeting with 3 teams. He's not going to meet with everybody. So it's us, the Broncos, and I'm not sure if the third team's the Jets or someone else. He's only meeting with a couple. He's not meeting with all of them. So I think it's realistic. I just think he sees maybe a team like the Broncos, if they want him, they would have an edge over us because they have more talent on the side of the ball. He knows better. I think there's a chance we get him. I just don't know how good of a chance right now. And I cross my fingers that we do get him. He's the type of guy I want. He is.
All right. So let's say you don't get him. Who's your next choice?
Let's just go out of Chris Richard. Flores, I don't want nobody from the Patriots because every one of those guys who left the Patriots and became a head coach somewhere else.
Yes, exactly.
So Flores, I don't even know a lot about him. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend that I do. But from what I've read about him and stuff, he's 37, I think, so a little young there. He's pretty much been a position coach his whole time in the NFL, except for this year. But let's be honest, when you're with the Patriots, he's not the defensive coordinator. Bill Belichick's the defensive coordinator. So he scares me a lot. And the one with the Chiefs there, Eric Bieniemy, he's not even, Reed runs that offense. He's not calling the plays. That scares me.
No, Bieniemy's calling plays.
Oh, he is calling plays now?
He is calling plays.
Okay,
I actually spoke with Brandon Howard of he used to be with Dolphins Wire for a while, and I asked him, like, what makes Bieniemy more special than guys like Philbin and Gase, who also were propped up by their superstar quarterbacks? And I mean, there's nobody more superstar right now than Patrick Mahomes, because like he's going to make everybody forget Tom Brady's name in a couple of years. So I asked him, like, why is Bieniemy so much more special? And he basically said, Bieniemy's been a player, so he knows how personnel groups work and stuff like that. And he knows how to get the most out of his players. And since he's been a player, he knows how to motivate them properly without being a jerk about it. And B, the other thing was that unlike the likes of Philbin and Gase, who were probably calling plays, Peyton Manning and Aaron Rodgers were probably audibling out of their crappy play calls all the time. Mahomes is not. Mahomes is playing what Bieniemy's calling. So there is that.
So I would think okay, so I'll just say this real quick. Between him and probably Chris Richard, I'm not even educated enough to say which one I would take. But either one of them, whoever they felt was best, that's where I do trust Chris Greer. If it's one of them, I'm fine with that. I would trust his judgment there. But first, Fangio, then if it's one of those two guys, I'd be okay with it.
I think, going back to Bieniemy, I'm pretty sure it was him who got a big endorsement from Richard Sherman on Twitter today, I think.
That was Chris Richard.
Yeah.
Or was it Chris Richard?
Yeah, Richard
I would go with Bieniemy number 1 for me, because I like the style that
over
he
Fangio
knows.
Or between the two of them?
I would go Fangio second, because but you gotta understand, I'm an offensive girl. I love my offenses.
Yep.
And God help me, Dana will tell you on our show, she's a defensive minded. I love offenses. And Eric Bieniemy behind Patrick Mahomes knows it takes a good quarterback to win in this league. So I would be excited for him because I know he would try to bring the best quarterback into this system. He's a player, like Lewis said before. He knows what it takes. And so he'd be my first choice, just because, like I said, I'm not much of a defensive person. Fangio, he's an older coach. It seems like we're going defensive, though. It seems like we have a lot more defensive coordinators on the list than offensive coordinators. But Bieniemy, I think, like you said, he's a player. He knows he's got a Patrick Mahomes. He knows that's what it takes to win in this league.
Okay,
so
well, let's be honest though. Let's be honest though. I hope he doesn't get used to Patrick Mahomes because it's hard to believe there ever being another Mahomes.
No, but he knows it. But he knows that it takes a quarterback like that to win in this system. I mean, because you got to look. He was, with Alex Smith. Look at Alex Smith.
Well, Alex
Smith was manageable.
Was the enemy calling plays last year? I don't think he was.
No, but you needed that one extra step. Honestly, Reed needed that one extra step the last couple years. He got it with Patrick Mahomes. And they all know that. They know that's the system that runs an offense is having a good franchise quarterback. Bieniemy knows that. So he's my first choice.
All right. I personally would have gone with Simon. Did you have a first pick?
No, I don't actually have a preference, to be honest with you. But you know what? Whoever they pick as head coach, I think it's important that everybody gets behind him and gives him a chance. Even if they don't like the pick due to individual preference, you've got to get behind the guy and make sure that we support whoever the offensive and defensive coordinators are as well. You got to get behind them and support them and give them a chance.
Exactly.
So basically, that just means that don't start yelling and screaming when 2019 doesn't go well.
Every head coach,
right, exactly.
Most head coaches get a little bit of a honeymoon of at least a year, especially what they're going to be walking into in Miami. I don't think that'll be an issue. But if it is someone like Eric Bieniemy, and if he brought in to run his defense, say, someone like Chuck Pagano or a Todd Bowles, that would not be a bad combination at all. And I think that would be, I think the fans would be happy with that. So that wouldn't be the worst thing, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out here over the next, I'd probably say 10 to 14 days. I think in the next 10 to 14 days, which is why this week we got to hope Philadelphia knocks out the Bears if we want Fangio. We got to hope you got to hope that Seattle knocks out the Cowboys if you want Richard. So, I mean, you got to root this weekend for those guys that we're talking to be out of the playoffs if that's the guy we really want when it's all said and done.
Right now, we can only interview Bieniemy and Flores because they're both doing first-round buys, and I don't think they have it scheduled for them yet. So,
and Fangio's on Monday.
Yeah, Fangio's on this upcoming Monday.
He's meeting with us and the Broncos on Monday.
And they play Saturday, right? They play Saturday.
No, they play Sunday night.
Do they play Sunday? Okay.
Or that night at 4 or so, or 5, whatever time. So, yeah.
Alrighty then, it's gonna be fun to see where this goes. I think I've been looking forward to an actual rebuild for quite some time. I was hoping that everybody would stay healthy because I knew everybody needed to be healthy if this was gonna work. And surprise, surprise, no one was. But at the end of the season was over. And mind you, I would like to bring up that I had questioned the strength and conditioning, and I think a lot of other people did too, just because how many players are getting hurt. Right. During Scott's not Scott. Oh my God, why Scott? Scott Stone is in my head. Simon.
Yeah,
it's like sorry. Scott is like the Dolphins guy who works with us. And it's like I don't know why he's in my head. Anyway, Simon, when he did his interview with Joe Rose, it was actually Joe who basically said, no, it's not the strength and conditioning. It's just football happens, injuries happen. So yeah. I mean, Joe was right about everything else. I guess I'll take his word for it on this too. But it's like it's hard to believe that we're just that bitten by the injury bug year in and year out. There's got to be something going on. I have a question for you guys before we go. Do you remember the injuries being this bad when Philbin was in charge? Just curious.
Off the top of my head, no.
No. I'd say no, too.
If you look at each injury, though, some of them, like someone like Sitton, you sort of could have saw this one coming. I didn't think it happened in week 1, but you could have seen it coming because he's been older. He's had some injuries of late. Not a young guy. I get it. Wilson, that was sort of a freak thing. That is one of those things that you just can't stop. It just happens to guys who play football. Wilson's. Grant was sort of the same way. One of those things. So if you look at each one on an individual case basis, that's probably the best way to judge it. It's weird. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it is a little bit of a fluky thing with some guys. Obviously, when you got Frank Gore and you got Wake and you got Sitton, those guys are older. They're going to break down. It's just, they're going to miss games. And that's what happened to all 3 of them. They missed games because they're older.
So I'd like to know, of all the players that were put on IR due to their injuries, how many of those injuries occurred at home and how many occurred away? You know, you wonder if the question is something wrong with the turf. I know that's come in for criticism in previous seasons. And
Garfinkel was adamant. It's like, stop talking about it.
Yeah. But you've seen in a couple of games. I think the last home game that Tannehill went on a long scramble, got his studs caught in the turf, and did you see how much turf was pulled up when he slid to the ground?
Yeah.
And that could just be because he sucks at sliding, which he does.
Yeah, but it does it pose the question? Albert Wilson's freak injury, was that down to the turf? Probably not, but is it worth asking the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they have to look at everything, obviously. Yeah, and that would be it, because they've had a lot of issues with that field over the past few years. And I'm not sure if there's any real right answers or to have that fixed, because you have two teams using it, and they also have shows and concerts there. It just gets so much use in the fall. I'm not sure what you can do. And then when it starts to rain like it does at times, I mean, there's really only so much you can do with that field, and they're not going to field turf because of many reasons. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, Kilgore
even when the Marlins were there and we had the dirt field, you would think we would see more injuries with that, but we didn't,
Yeah. And I also think, too, with the injuries, part of it is, the rules have changed in the NFL. These guys don't work as much in the offseason.
Hang on, Mike. Hang on. I want to get into that real quick. But here, you're right. The rules of how teams have to practice have changed a lot. It's not the same it used to be. You're basically handicapped. Like I've heard old stories about, because I'm a young guy. You got to remember that. I've heard stories about how Don Shula would have like a morning practice, and then they take a break, and then they kick their butts with another practice. Those days are long gone. But you better believe that those players were ready. Now, this is the thing. Even regarding the new rules, we've heard reports lately coming out that apparently Gase's practice were wussy compared to some other teams, and that in itself is like, okay, wait a minute. If do you think maybe that had something to do with it?
Yeah, obviously they're not doing something right. I mean, I'm not there every day. I don't know, and I don't know how their practices compare lined up to a team like the Chiefs or a team like the Jets. I don't know, but obviously whatever they're doing wasn't working. It just was not working in many ways, from the results on the field to people who got hurt. So, yeah, it's something that needs to be looked at. And the thing, too, with Shula, there's a new book about him out that I have read, and I had on the author of my podcast. There were years he ran 3-a-days.
Yeah, I remember
Can you imagine that now? You have the union would be down their throats. ESPN would be going, concussions at practice. People would be going, he ran 3-a-days. That's insane.
It is. And like I said, I am the old school, so I remember
preseason games.
I remember the Shula 2-a-days, and they'll tell you they were strenuous. But like I said, the CPA they handcuff a lot of these teams, like you said. So I think a lot of the injuries do because these guys just aren't conditioned like they used to be.
Well, one thing to remember as well, with the new head coach we have, that means two things. A, we won't be on Hard Knocks because that's one of the rules. If you have a new head coach, you aren't on Hard Knocks. And two, we get to open up training camp 1 week earlier before everyone else, because that is also a rule. When you have a new head coach, you can open up your camp 1 week earlier. So that is two things to keep in mind here as we sort of move into 2019.
Well, we'll see how this goes for the future. I want to thank you guys for coming on. This was a lot of fun. It was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was brilliant. Really good.
All right, so I hope to have you guys on again sometime soon. So, and I think we need to do this roundtable stuff like more often because this is awesome. Like,
this is a good group. I like this group. This is a good group.
All right. So anyway, thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed, and we are going to try to get to a more regular schedule again. I'm going to try to schedule these things now instead of just randomly popping up. It's like, oh, I have a podcast. I'm like, no. Okay, an actual schedule now. I promise we're going to get it going. I have help this time, so we're going to make it work. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. Simon, Lisa, Mike, thanks for coming on, and we will see you next time on another episode of the PhinManiacs.com podcast. And good night.
Sir. Good night.
Brilliant.